Well, hello and welcome to a brand new podcast series where people talk about cancer and they talk about survival. From me to you, the art of survival. But it's nothing to do with me. I'm just here to hold the hand of the proper leader, the person whose idea it was, the survivor. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Judith Neptial and I am the co-founder of From Me to You, the Art of Survival. We are an organisation whose sole purpose is to promote equality for marginalised black communities. Each week we will be bringing along a trailblazer who has significantly contributed to the black community.
Then why am I here? I've done nothing. Anyway, we're here, both of us, because we're survivors, right?
Absolutely.
We're both survived cancer, but your story is amazing. Mine is absolutely boring when it comes to yours. Tell us a little bit about when cancer first visited you.
The first time I actually remember cancer being mentioned was on July the 31st at 7 p.m. I remember the time exactly.
What year?
2018. I'd gone into hospital to undertake minor surgery. And when I woke up from that surgery, I remember seeing a crowd of doctors around the bottom of my bed. And for those of you who frequent hospitals, you'll know that when you see a lot of doctors at the bottom of your bed, that's never a good sign.
Do you think you were dead or something?
Well, something like that. They basically said to me, "We have some really bad news." And I was like, okay. And they said to me, "You have cancer." And I remember saying, okay, so what do we do? And they said, nothing, we're afraid. It's terminal and there's nothing that we can do. Yeah, words can't really describe what that felt like, other than to say that the panic, it was almost like a black mist. And I remember thinking that this is going to envelope me. And at that point, I said a prayer. I remember saying that, "Father God, please help me." And all of a sudden, I just remember complete and utter peace. And I don't remember anything else. I didn't hear anything else. I just remember complete and utter peace and a voice in the back of my mind saying, "It's going to be okay."
I think when I talk to people, and certainly for myself, the minute they say you have cancer, you think, I'm going to die. But yours is weird, because I said to you, you've got cancer and you are going to die.
Yeah.
And yet you're not dead.
Absolutely.
But I don't think you are.
I hope not.
Otherwise somebody else is sitting next to me. Did you have anybody with you?
At the point when they told me, no, I was on my own. My daughter was there actually, sorry, my daughter was, but she'd stepped away.
So when they told you that you had cancer
Yeah.
for the first time, and when they told you the cancer was terminal, you were on your own.
Yeah.
First thing I say to people is don't go to that appointment on your own, but yours wasn't even an appointment.
No, there was no escape.
They had you tied down in the bed.
Yeah, there was nowhere to go. Yeah.
And we're going to give her this news. I think that's one of the things I'd love us to investigate through the series. How people are told.
Yeah, absolutely.
How they feel. Because I remember he told me I had Hodgkin's lymphoma, right? That was mine.
Yeah.
And of course I must have gone pale. Because he said to me, I don't know why you're so miserable. I could be telling you had lung cancer. You've got a 70% chance of survival. And I remember looking at him and saying to him, you've told too many people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
One in two of us will get cancer, right? So that means that they're telling a lot of people.
Well, absolutely. I think the issue is that sometimes you can become a statistic when you're dealing with that amount of people, you know, and it's not that anybody means harm. It's just that it's something that's being done repetitively. However, I think what sometimes, you know, people fail to recognise is that each and every one of those people have a story, have a journey, have families, have loved ones, and it is the first time for them. Yeah.
I must say, in terms of the medical profession and what we're going to do is work through it. And clearly, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about is going to be culturally sensitive. You know, Is it the same for black people? Do they tell people? Does it depend on the cancer? Is it still a bad word? Who did you tell?
My daughter.
So she's gone off to get a little coffee and wee-wee, and she comes back and all these people around your bed, and you say, "Hello, babe, I've got terminal cancer."
No, actually, in preparation for her coming back, the doctors had taken her to the side as well and said to her, because I'm going to retrace. When they told me, I remember I did ask one question, how long?
Well,
and they were like,
I'm going to come to that, but it's your story, because that would be mine.
Yeah.
How long have I got? What did they say?
They said a year, under a year.
Okay. So look, clearly this is going to be interesting. It's going to be difficult, and anything dealing with cancer is going to be challenging. It affects us, the people we live with, the people we work with. Certainly mentally, I think I have ongoing things. You're lying there, but there is fun in a weird kind of way. Wait till I tell you the story of them taking out the sperm for little Eddies. That's a funny story. Or not being able to go to the toilet because they don't often find the right medication at the right time, so they have to try. So not going to the toilet for 6 days is something I'll tell you about. I won't be laughing at anybody saying they're constipated again. But the core of this is, the core of what you want to come from this is what? That you're not alone, that there's a shared experience, that you can survive it. What is it that you want to come from?
I think the core that I would like people to understand is that cancer is no longer a death sentence. You know, you can live. And I really want people to understand, especially from our community, that there are places and organisations that will help you. This no longer has to be something that is suffered in silence. You know, we are stronger together.
When did you go from being a sufferer to a campaigner? Because it feels to me that I've interviewed you over a number of years, and actually, if I'm honest, I interviewed you quite a lot in a short period of time because I thought you were going to die. I didn't know quite how stubborn you were.
You found out though.
I now know. Yeah. Clearly, that's why you're still here. But what do you say? If somebody says a year, I'm trying to think of. You kind of think of all the things you want to do, don't you?
At the time, no. My first concern was my daughter. I was a single mum. I am a single mum. And my daughter was in her first year of university. So for me, dying was not an option. You know, and I think every parent out there will understand that. No parent wants to leave their child alone in this world. So for me, everything else was in the background. It was all noise. All I knew was that I needed time. I just needed time.
To do what?
To ensure that she was able to survive.
What does that mean?
To be independent to have finished university, not asking me for money anymore,
I think
which
that,
still hasn't happened.
I think that carries on. I think that carries on. Knowing what you know now, how would that scenario of you being told, your daughter being told, be different?
I think I would have liked my daughter to have been shielded from the whole experience a lot more than what she was. She was 19 and she was in the front line because I wasn't able to. I wasn't able to be that person. And yeah, she had conversations and situations that no 19-year-old should ever have to deal with. You know, what would be the preparations for helping your mum to die? What does that look like? I can't even begin, I don't even think till this day we've had that conversation. You know, I only found out maybe in the last year that they told Ashley 3 months. What's that like? What does that do to somebody?
Why haven't you had the conversation?
We've been very positive throughout this whole thing. And that takes us back, I believe, to a very dark place.
You do understand, right? In order to know when the sun is shining, you have to feel the rain, right?
Absolutely, but there's rain and downpour.
I understand that. I think what I'm doing is I'm lucky that I didn't have children when I had mine. And there wasn't a time when anybody told me I was going to die. So clearly my experience is very different to yours. And probably that's one of the reasons that you want to do this, that everybody's experience is different. But yours is the catalyst for this. And we send young people to war at 17, right?
Right.
So when you say a 19-year-old, this isn't something a 19-year-old, you mean your 19-year-old?
My 19-year-old, yes, but I think a lot of parents in today's society would feel the same.
Because they would. Of course they would.
You know?
I know we've got 6 of these, and I'm going to try to get her on here, because I think it would be fascinating to hear. I've interviewed you, and I've interviewed her. The two of you together, be interesting, because the whole point of the podcast, so far as I can see, is that we're going to tell stories that mean that when people at home and they're going through it, they go, well, I'm not alone. Somebody else has gone through it. This is part of the process. And the one thing you got to hold on to is hope.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that I want people to understand is that you are not alone. And that stemmed from my relationship with Ashley. You know, it was created because at that time, I felt that no parent and no child should ever have to be in that situation. You know?
What kind of conversations have you had with her then? Do you talk to her about, I don't know, periods, boyfriends? Well, I don't know, explain to me. What kind of conversations?
We have a very open and transparent relationship. There isn't anything really.
Except, how did you feel when they told you that I was going to be dead in 3 months?
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it?
It's a hard place to go.
Well, you want to help people, and sometimes we gotta get a little bit uncomfortable ourselves, haven't we? You ready for that? You're much more comfortable talking about the whole campaigning thing. It's really interesting to watch you. When I ask you the personal stuff, like I haven't even asked you, because I'm a rubbish interviewer, what cancer you had? What cancer you have? Have. Which one's right?
Have.
So you're still fighting it?
It's terminal, it will never go.
Well, you're still here.
It's inoperable, yeah, but I'm still here. And that's what I want people to understand. Terminal is not a death sentence.
Yeah, you're doing the campaigning thing again, aren't you?
Yeah. Huh.
It's all right, you do it. If
I
that's
can't-
you, that's all right. Yeah, but we will need to know more about it and each other. And I promise you, you will do the campaigning stuff. I promise you. I'll tell you a story, Through COVID, I've got a half-brother who, I call him half-brother, but my brother's 8 days younger than me. So that tells you how complicated that is, right? And he said he had cancer. And he said it was inoperable. The same words you use. And he said, it's incurable. So I've got another kind of cancer, which is a skin cancer. So I have to do weird things all the time. So I live with that. So when he said to me, it was inoperable or incurable or whatever, I thought, oh, okay. He didn't tell me it was terminal. He didn't say that. His was lung cancer. And we went, and I used to go and see him, and we used to watch Columbo, and we used to talk. And it was really interesting that the only thing that he wouldn't give up is hope. And you can't give up hope, because once you give up hope, you're gone. How important is hope for you, and what is your hope with your cancer?
Obviously, the pipeline, wish for the stars thing is that one day I'll go and they'll say to me, it's gone. That would be the ideal thing.
So that's still your hope?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be the ideal thing. I don't know what the likelihood of that is, but yeah, we live in hope. I live in hope. It's not impossible, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to ask you some of the questions I wanted to ask my brother. Do you ever forget? Do you ever wake up in the morning and forget you got cancer?
It's a funny story about that. When I was first diagnosed, I hated waking up because I would wake up and for 30 seconds, I'll forget. And those 30 seconds were the best 30 seconds ever.
Day, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the realization would come. And yeah, the day wasn't as bright.
Yeah, but this is a good thing. I don't think I've seen a podcast where predominantly black people talk about maybe some of the nuances of cancer. Who do you tell? I didn't call it cancer for months. Didn't want to accept I had it. Them coming round and packing your leg. My wife having to give me injections every morning. I mean, there are lots of things, aren't there? So we're going to, through the podcast, examine those. And we've got some fabulous guests. And I'm going to try to take you to the edge and then pull back. Because the one thing that we will get into is the physicality of cancer is a big thing. Everybody kind of understands. But how it impacts you mentally, man.
That's what I was just going to say. The physicality is one side.
It sends you crazy.
Yeah, it's the mental side of it, that you just don't foresee. You know that when people say to you about cancer, that physically you will change.
Yeah.
It's expected. Yeah. You know that.
Yeah.
But mentally,
it's
psychologically, that's a different. I was not prepared for that.
Well, no, and we're going to explore it. I
Yeah.
think just before we bring on our special guest, there is somebody that you know very well, and I kind of know, and I kind of know about him because, as I say, the podcast is about the nuances of going through cancer, but also survival, because we are both still here, right?
Absolutely.
And this guy's an absolute survivor because so much of his stuff is so public. And sometimes I wonder about him mentally too, so which we'll talk about in a little while. I'll tell you, I was moonlighting last night. I was doing a gig for the numerously skills with children, whether it's taught in schools and it's a charity. And I sat down, and I normally, when I wear my posh clothes, have my little man here. So I'm sat between two people, funny enough, Lord Tony Sewell and his wife, and a lady called Ella and her fiance Tom. And I'm hosting the event, but this is where I've sat. And Tom says to me, "What's that little man on your thing?" This is really interesting. This is last night. This is why I know the podcast is going to be great. "What's that little man?" I said, "This is for prostate cancer." His new girlfriend says, "Oh my God, that's what my dad died from." Yes? Then Lord Tony Sewell's wife says, "I've had 5 operations for cancer." And then Eleanor, who's sat here, says to me, you know, in terms of, well, she says to Tom, her boyfriend, fiance, "Tell your story." He had bowel cancer in 2008, and he was adamant that the mental side of it was much, much worse. So cancer is everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 1 in 2 people by 2030. You know, that's half the population.
So we need to talk about it.
We've got to talk about it.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, the art of survival, from me to you. Right, you ready for your special guest now?
We absolutely are.
Well, hello. It's Eddie and Judith. From me to you, the art of survival. Our next guest is a survivor, as a player, as a manager, and as a granddad, I think, at his age. He's a survivor. We're really lucky to have him here because it is about surviving. It's about, you know, overcoming adversity, and he's somebody who's definitely done that. Welcome to Mr. Chris Hughton. Welcome, Chris. Come in, sit down. Thank you very much for coming in. How are you, friend?
Well, I'm dressed appropriately for the area.
Are you?
I think, yeah.
Is it?
Younger than my years.
Well, you look fantastic. Look, yeah, you keep your flat stomach and all of that.
Well, a lot of it's genetics. I must admit, my dad was always in good shape right until he passed last year. But right until then,
to hear that.
but he was always in good shape. So I'm hoping that I got the good genes from him. So I'm quite fortunate that way.
You know Judith, don't you?
Well, Judy, you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being formal and nice and pleasant.
Well,
you know Judy,
yes,
don't you?
Well, if I tell you the story, Judy's well and truly my mate, my friend. But for years, she was my very good friend's baby sister. So.
What does that mean? Does that mean stay away from her?
No, I mean she baby sister. I mean,
baby.
Yes, I mean.
Not younger sister.
Yes.
No.
Oh right.
Yes. So there's quite a few years difference. So I was at the household on numerous occasions, and just going a little bit back to what you said about her being stubborn. So she got that from her mum. Thank
you for that.
That is for sure.
Yeah, but clearly that's helped. In the instance
helped.
of being told you've got a year to live in 2018 and still being here in 2024, you imagine that stubbornness has played a part, wouldn't it?
I would imagine it's played a big part. And as I said, I know Judy's mum very well. It's at times I was almost part of the family.
Absolutely.
And so I know her very well. And in reference to the stubbornness coming from my mum, it's something that I think has been a plus, certainly a plus, not a negative. I'm full of admiration for what Judy is gone through, the way that she's coped with everything, the campaign now, which she's thrown herself into, every little bit of her into. And I'm incredibly proud of her.
Thank you. You know, that actually means so much. Chris, as he said, was my brother's best friend growing up, and I was the annoying little sister. And Chris was always one of my favourites out of all of my brother's friends, because I was extremely annoying, and I would try and go into their room when they were talking, and my brother would firmly shoo me out of the room.
You can say no, you weren't annoying, Chris. You could say that, couldn't you?
No,
but you haven't. I know you haven't.
No, never annoying, but she was young. She was a young sister. But I always remember that because I've had kids and I've grandkids and so on. And I always remember when she was young, I think she was protected a little bit. I remember she had a medical condition when she was younger. And so I always felt that she was protected a little bit. And there was a big gap between my friend, Judy's brother, Steve, and her.
Are you the runt of the litter then?
I am.
That's why.
Unashamedly
Spoiled brat. Well, you're so kind. Everybody says that about you. Why don't you just say it like that? She was spoilt. Say it, Chris.
Well, protected, I think, is
She's protected.
comes over,
Okay, so tell me then, because there would have been. What's your mate's name?
That's Steve.
There would have been, wouldn't there? You know, you're an East London boy. Me, Hackney, you Forest Gate. Mm-hmm. So you guys are a different part of East London. But there would have been Steve's sister's got cancer and she's gonna die, or Steve's sister's really badly ill, or have you heard about Steve's sister? Or Steve might have phoned you himself. Mm. Tell me about that.
No, Steve rang me, and the ironic thing is I don't really know cancer. You know, I haven't had family members that have passed, and the ironic thing is that still today, my three best friends are still very much in contact with them. I went to school with all three of them, and one of them, my three best friends, Steve, Morris, Leroy, and I was also around Leroy's house a lot.
Clearly, another podcast will talk about why your family didn't want you in there.
Yes, as soon as I said that, I started thinking.
You left yourself open for that.
You're starting to think there's a reason why I didn't want to be in my own house, but that probably you're right. That's another podcast. There's something also to do with the food, I think. But that's. But this is my good friend Leroy. His mum passed away with cancer, and I saw how that affected the family. There was my friend Leroy, who was actually the younger of four, and Lorille was the mum's name, and there were four of them, three girls, three sisters, and then the younger brother, and I saw how that affected the family, particularly my friend Leroy, who was my age, and it took him an incredible amount of time to recover from that.
Leroy's mum died. You didn't know anything about cancer before then. Mm. So when Steve phones up and says Judy's got cancer, what goes through your head?
Mm. I think that the two things. One was it was difficult for me to comprehend. The big difference was that Leroy's mum was the mother of four older children. So in terms of her own age, you know, she wasn't a young lady as such, and I think you tend to put the two together. You know, cancer, you know, affects, you know, older people. And that was probably my thinking.
I think quite often when we hear things and we reason them out, we reflect on them as though we were analysing ourselves. Mm. So let me ask you a different question. Steve phones you and says, what?
Mm. No, he told me, you know, probably what, because obviously I can remember conversations with Judy. You know, probably what I can't remember at this time. Steve rings me and tells me that Judy has cancer. At that particular moment, at this particular moment, I can't remember if he told me she had terminal cancer.
Yeah.
Or she had cancer. There was a little bit of me that went back to the young age where Judy had some medical issues and whether they were related.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Probably the hardest bit for me was to comprehend it all, because not only was Judy young, but
well, I was the baby, wasn't I?
She was the baby.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm sitting with her now. We're good friends and mates, but she's still, my baby sister.
Your mate, your sister. That's like your daughter will always be your child.
Yeah, for sure. I'll take being forever young. Yeah, works for me.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
defo works.
If I wish I was forever young. So, look, you hear about it. Just one more on that, and then we'll talk about why we've invited you on here. Do you remember the first time you saw Judy after you heard that she had it?
Yeah.
Yes, I
And I'll just see if it tallies up with Judy's memory.
Yes, so I'm trying to comprehend whether there was one time before I saw you in the hospital.
Yeah.
At Whitechapel.
I think that was them, wasn't it?
You went to the hospital?
Yes, I saw her at Whitechapel Hospital.
Well, hold on. Now, you see, you're jumping about.
Good.
If you go to the hospital, you're worried.
Yeah, what I can tell you, what I can tell you.
I don't feel like you're telling me the truth. I've always known interviewing you would be difficult.
Yeah.
So you hold so much in.
Well, I'm not the most emotional of people. I remember very, very well going to see her. At that moment, you wouldn't have noticed. But I was very emotional.
Fine, but I'm going to ask you a different question. Do you remember why you went to see her?
And now, what I can tell you, I didn't go to see her because I thought she was dying.
Right. Okay. That's kind of what I meant.
I went to see her because it's Judy. That's why I went to see her, and I knew she had cancer. I didn't go to see her because I thought she was dying.
He's a family friend,
Absolutely.
but he's still Chris Hughton. So he comes into the hospital. Do you see him? Are you awake? Where are you?
There's a funny story. Like Chris came up to the as he walked in. I remember people all of a sudden turning round, and I went from being of no interest to absolute total interest. All of a sudden, nurses kept on coming up to the bed. Would you like anything? So, like I said, I'll take that. But I remember feeling it was just such a kind thing to do. At a point when I was totally lost. I don't think Chris even realises the magnitude of that, being shown that people care.
It's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're just on your face, Chris. If I'm honest with you, you're on your face, man. My wife used to go to work 8:30 and work the minimum day till 3:30, and I used to just lie there waiting for her to come back. When I used to have my injection, the lady, Georgie, sat there with me for 2 hours and would just stroke my hand. I fell in love, man. I just you're so vulnerable. So you're aware of your act of kindness, Chris?
Well, what you have spoke about the physical side of things. So what was clear was that Judy had lost a lot of weight. Obviously when I went to see her. So if we're looking at the mental aspects of it, and of course the physical aspects of it, then what was clear was that she'd lost a lot of weight, and that was obviously the physical side of it. I mean, what didn't change was that We've known each other a long time.
I can imagine what's coming now.
No, but what didn't change was that we could still, laugh and joke. If we're sometimes I think when you're in this position, you're thinking, what are they feeling? How should I be? And sometimes it can be very, very natural.
Yeah.
And I speak about inspiring things. Even at that stage there, Judy was already talking about, alternative medicines, fighting this. So I never got the feeling that I was walking in, seeing my good friend that had this terminal feeling about her. And I never had that feeling, even though the environment that I went to might have said that.
Yeah, and I remember vividly we walked back down the corridors, I walked her out and we were laughing.
Yes.
We were laughing. And I think that's always been something that we do. We use humour at difficult moments.
Mm. But I must admit that I think it's them engaging moments, so when I'm with her, but I must admit, and I've already said I'm not the most emotional of people, but once I'd left the hospital, I was, and this is not a reflection of the period of time I just had with Judy, but I was quite deflated when I came away from there, only because what obviously was I was confronted with is, this is serious.
A sick person.
This is
Lots
serious.
of people think that there is this thing called a cancer uniform. The skin gets a lot darker. You kind of, for women, many women that I've interviewed about cancer, are really worried about losing their hair.
Mm.
But usually when you interview or see somebody who's got cancer, certainly when I look back at pictures of me with cancer, it's different.
Yeah.
Let me take you into the survival part of it. And by the way, before we get into that, there's a guy called Felix Dexter who used to be in the Real McCoy with us, and when Felix died, he wanted to see 12 people, and I was one of them, and I went to the hospice, and I don't think I've ever laughed so much in my life. It is a very curious thing, because it's hard, it's bad, but you can't, again, just quickly, when I went to see my brother, he used to say to me, I love when you come in. He's an Arsenal supporter. So we used to argue about football because I'm a glory-seeking so-and-so. I support Man United. And he said, I love when you come in early because all these bleeping people come and see me and they start crying. And I look at them and I think, why are you crying? Is it you that's about to die? And that's kind of the gallows humour, isn't it? Yeah. You got to do it. You wouldn't have wanted Chris to come and visit you in the hospital and start crying, would you? But that's not going to help anybody, is it?
No. I think it's funny because as you said that, I can always remember my brothers coming, and that's what they did.
That's right. That's right. But one of the things you learn, which is so good that you said, when you left and the reality slaps you in your forehead, it's a whole different thing. Do you know what I mean? In front of me, my mum and my wife never cried. It was always just normal. Now, many years later, they tell me they went downstairs, held hands and cried and prayed, but they didn't do it in front of me. So that's a really interesting thing to explore in terms of, the podcast. What do you show? What don't you show? And it's a perfect link to you. Because I've always saw, I thought it was Tottenham. I thought it was Newcastle. I thought it definitely with Brighton, right? So in case anybody's watching, please forgive me. Chris as a player, as a coach, has seen the highs, he's seen the lows, but in that world, it's also public. And I've always been fascinated by what you felt you've needed to show and the difference between what you show us as members of the public and how you are at home. This is a conversation about the art of survival.
I think there is always a public persona that you have to put on. So, you know, it's a little bit like winning a game, and I'm talking about as a coach. It's a bit like winning a game as a coach, being calm and collected, you know, after the game, cameras, so shaking hands with the opposition, and coach, walking into your changing room, into your office on your own, and then punch in the air.
But some people would punch the air with everybody watching. Why? It's my sense, right? Because I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
But it's my sense that your survival mechanism is not getting too high when things are good, and then not getting too low.
But very much. Yeah, because what you're always thinking about the next. Is that, you know, if you are somebody that's exuberant, that physically shows enjoyment of winning, it's about the pressure of, you know, what's next. What about when you're not winning? So it is trying. For me, it's always about trying to be not showing too much. You know, something I can tell you. I've never read the local papers. So even at Newcastle, when we did very well, got promotion obviously back up to the Premier League, and up there, you know, you have 2 or 3 local papers, as you know.
Yeah, I've been up there, but I know you know, you're talking about what, 52,000
yes.
home every week. I mean, it's a religion up there.
Yes. So I never read so even if, you know, we had some big nights up there, and so. But I would never read the local papers, because always the way I looked at it was that, well, if there's always the temptation to look at the papers when things are going well.
Believe me.
Well, in our industry, you are never always going to be doing well, you know. So what I always wanted to be was try to be level-headed enough that, you know.
But you had to learn that. Or did you? Sorry, it's a question.
I think it's part of my personality.
Listen, like, I believe I can always. My mum, she's like Chris. She adores Chris, and she'd always say Chris has always been the same from the minute he was a little boy to how he is now as a man.
So can I tell you what the stories that I hear about Chris are? As though Chris isn't here, and then Chris can say that there'll always be this thing because he's so nice, and because he doesn't do that edgy stuff, because he's a decent human being, in a way, rather like they talk about Gareth Southgate at the minute. Do you see that parallel, or is it something you refute?
No, that I see, that I accept, but I've always worked. So if I talk about there are different aspects of my work. One, of course, is a player, but that's a player. Being a coach and a manager are completely different. Being an assistant and being the head coach or the manager are completely different. I've always felt that the only way that I can perform to the best of my ability is to perform within my personality.
Right.
I didn't want to be something that I'm not. So I would like to think that successes or non-successes, pluses, minuses, doing well, not doing so well, that they've all been around my personality and how I am. And it's always been important for me. It's always been important for me for people to say, well, that's Chris. You know,
he's a decent guy.
That's how he is. Yeah, I would like to think so. I mean, there would be plenty of players at times
only the ones you didn't pick, Chris,
that wouldn't have thought I was so good or so decent or so. But it's always been something that's been really important for me.
We're talking about the art of survival, but Judy, this guy is a mate. This guy is in your circle. You see the highs, you see the lows. In terms of your happiness, in terms of you getting on, in terms of you feeling your group is doing okay, how much is something like Chris's success or failure a thing that you're aware of?
I think we've always taken a very keen interest from very early on, you know, in how Chris progresses in life, you know, if he's doing well or if things are not as they should be. And of course, you know, we see him as a part of the family. So as with family, if someone's doing well, you applaud that, you're extremely happy for them. And if things are not as good, then you feel that too.
I think I owe you an apology, Chris, because I think the way that I've interviewed you today has conflated survival as a professional and survival as a husband, a man, a father, and a grandfather. Because we're talking about life here with the cancer, and life is different to your work, is it? Or you help me because
life is different to work.
Yeah, because you go home and you sit down with the kids and the grandkids, and there must be times when you're feeling rubbish and you kind of sit down in your garden or whatever and you go, actually, this is success, isn't it? I mean, help me. You know, we're surviving, we're doing okay, we've got family, we've got love. Or are you just, don't talk to me, anybody, because I've had a tough time at work today?
No, I think there will always be that part of it. There's always has been. If I'm again player, stroke manager, but there've been lots of occasions when we've lost a game. I'm the manager. We've lost a game. I've gone home. There are people in the house, maybe not family, people that are coming over or coming for dinner, and I've not been in the best of humour, and everybody can see that. You know, they're the emotions that you have at times taken back with you, but through a career. You've always had to have a mechanism. I mean, again, we talk about playing and management as in a playing career. Remember, I played in the 70s. So, sorry, in the 80s. I made my debut in 79, so I played throughout the 80s. They were the times when there was an incredible amount of racism around the game. Completely around the game, and when I made my debut, I was the only black player in the team, the only. So around that, you have to have a mechanism, a coping mechanism, to deal with all of that, and that was about your support mechanism. So coming back to home, coming back to the East End, Forest Gate. Stratford, between Stratford and they lived the other side of West Ham Park. Steve, my other friends, that was my support mechanism, my coping mechanism of getting away with that. So you have to have that. But it doesn't mean that work doesn't affect you, because they're the emotions of work. They're the things that are here and now. It's a bit like settling down after, you know, we lose a game. But, so we've played on a Saturday, we lose a game, you know, we lose it in a bad way. You know, sometimes you forget about Saturday night. Sunday a bit about, no, it's still there.
No, yeah, that's what I meant.
It's still
gone,
in there.
as in, that's all that's in your head.
That's all in my head. A little bit of Sunday, you know, by the time Sunday evening comes around, you're getting back to normal. Come Monday, that's behind you.
What are you eating to help you get over that on a Sunday night? What's the Sunday dinner in your house?
What am I eating or what am I drinking?
Well, both. I mean, yeah, I just wanted to be clear with that. Surviving and living is different to surviving and working, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why even in the so many conversations that I've had with Judy, what I'm experiencing now, I mean, as I've got older, then of course I'm confronted more with family, friends, parents that are passing away. My father passed last year. My father-in-law is not so well at the moment. So as I've got older, I'm confronted with that and dealing with that.
Real life stuff.
Yes, far more than
perspective,
before.
I think,
and it puts it all into perspective.
It's perspective.
All of it.
When I get to your age, indeed when I get to Judith's age, I hope that I have. Hey, but we
see that's the
I noted that.
That's the comedian coming out.
That's the escape, because if you don't do the humour, just sometimes I feel, and it gets me into so much trouble. I feel like my head is going to explode. But of course, you're the coach. You can't even joke with the players or stuff.
You can't.
You've got to be aloof.
But talking about your brother and sitting around the bedside. In the last 2 years, 3 years, I've been around some bedsides, but certainly attending a lot of 9 nights, and I must admit that some of them have been some of the joyous nights that we've had.
Yeah.
Let me tell everybody that you come from particular communities. 9 nights after the person dies, people come together, stories, memories. My dad's 9 night is the best time I've ever had with my 2 brothers. And we've never had a happier time. It's the single happiest moment with my brothers that I know, because everybody had a story, everybody had a picture, everybody had a memory, and it was just...
Well, I think it's a beautiful way to celebrate somebody's life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's what we need to do.
If they get to an age.
Yeah, we forget we need to celebrate.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Life's an amazing thing, so when we get the opportunity, we have to take that.
So we need your help now. We need for you to just talk about, this too will pass. Maybe you're speaking to yourself. Maybe you're speaking to the thousands of people watching the podcast about survival, what you have learned about survival. You're on our first episode because you're special. You are. And, everybody's aware of who you are and what you do. And there's a lot of us who look up to you for the way that you carry yourself. So it's about cancer, yes. But as 2 survivors, we look to you as a survivor to kind of give us a heads up, the people watching. What have you learned about yourself, and what would you tell people to think of or to remember when it's about, sometimes you can't get over it, you can't get under it, you can't get around it, so you literally got to go through it. You just take it.
I think the question that I've always asked myself is why? And that's the question I think that everybody needs to ask themselves. Why? If we're talking about surviving through something, why do I want to? Do I want to prove people wrong? Okay. Do I want to travel the world? Do I want to die? Do I want to get to areas in a particular trade that nobody thought I could do that? So I think that's the first question. Why do I want to survive? And that can be somebody surviving from cancer, from an illness. Why do I want to see my grandchildren?
Absolutely.
Why do I want to see my daughter get married? Why do I want to see my daughter have children? Why do I want to see my family? So I think that's the most important thing. And then it's about the mechanisms to put that in place. So if it's because, right, they said it was terminal. Okay. I'm going to prove that it's not terminal, or I'm going to prove that it's not as terminal as what they thought. So, if that's the case, how can I go about that? And then it's about putting things in place, executing things. So, if I then shift on to Judy now, and the conversations I had after that. And I'd have some conversations, she's talking about alternative medicines. She was reading, I think Judy's always been a good reader anyway. She was reading up so much on cancer that obviously she'd never read before. So this is her fighting back. So we all have to have that reason why. And I believe that absolutely everybody has that. You know, why do I want to prove people wrong? Why do I still want to live? Why do I want to get to an age where I can buy that nice car or buy that nice house? So I think that's where it starts. And then it's about putting those mechanisms in place, support mechanisms, coping. And coping mechanisms, I think, is one that is important, because I don't think anybody can come through something being on a high all the time. And I've spoken to Judy, seen Judy when, even though this wonderful journey that she's on, there are lots of lows in that, and it's about her coping mechanisms through that journey. And but I think that it starts with why.
I think also, adding to that, one of the things that I've taken from Chris is resilience. You know, when you spoke earlier on about your journey, to do what you've done and to have faced some of the things that you've faced, that's just, you know, I've always admired that. And to do so with such grace is amazing. And, you know, I have to be honest, it's something that I try to emulate. I fail miserably, but you know.
You know you don't believe that. That's the other side of her. You know you don't believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the chief things that I think I take away from you, or I've learnt from you.
Well, you're putting the podcast together through Judy's experiences. I and other watchers of the podcast understand the why now. You had to be on the very first episode. Proud of you, fella. Thanks very much for coming.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it. Oh, no, you didn't kiss me. For goodness sake. Can I end the episode before you start doing that? Thank you very much. Now they're going to see the real side of me. I did the nice side, so they thought I was a nice fella. Now they're going to know what. That's from me and Judy, the very first in 6 episodes of From You to Me, From Me to You, The Art of Survival, special guest Chris Hughton. How you feeling?
Emotional, but it's been great.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's been great.
Give you a week or so to calm down.
Oh, thanks.
And then we'll be right back here.
And you'll have me back.
For episode 2. Listen, I'm sure there'll be all sorts of links at the end of this. Love for the conversation to continue. That's what this is about. The more you don't talk about something, the more you think you're struggling with it on your own, and there are other people. There are places you can do. This is just the beginning of the conversation.